Leo wished the dragon hadn't landed on the toilets. So, is it on the toilets or in the toilets?
On the toilets.
Okay, let me just say that with more confidence. What's good? Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of The Newest Olympian. My name is Mike Schubert. I'm the titular Newest Olympian. I'm a 32-year-old man who never read the Percy Jackson books as a kid. I read them as an adult because I was determining if society had been sleeping on the Percy Jackson series. I said yes, and now I'm continuing to see if other elements of the Riordanverse have been slept on. Currently, we're figuring out if society has slept on Heroes of Olympus, and I am joined today on this quest by someone who you may have seen me sharing wonderful stuff on the social media accounts of the Newest Olympian. It is Robert Gaymer from TheDamMemePage. Robert, how's it going?
How's it going, everyone? Hi, Mike. Thank you for having me.
I am so delighted to have you on. You called dibs on these chapters, I believe, 38 years ago. So I am happy to have you here to make your debut to discuss these two very fun chapters. I can see why you called dibs. They're super cool. Leo's kind of big aha moment.
Oh, yeah, they're really cool. It's really funny because, I called dibs. I'm like, oh, let me guest on the Newest Olympian back at Comic-Con. So,
yeah,
October last year. That was wild.
Wild times. And here's hoping for a future Comic-Con run-in. But before we get into these chapters, what is your history with both the Percy Jackson series as a whole, the PJO books, and then also specifically the HOO books?
It all started in roughly when the books came out, 2005, 2006. That summer, my mom was like, hey, you guys, me and my sister, are not just going to sit in front of the TV and computer. We're going to buy some books. And so we bought a bunch of books. That was my first introduction to Roald Dahl and The Phantom Tollbooth and a lot of really good books. And there was also this nifty little book called The Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
It's a pretty good book. I think it's good. I've only read it once, but I liked it.
And then that just started me down the path. I got the books as they came out every year. When I got The Lost Hero, I went through what I think is mostly a rite of passage that was ultimately maybe kind of ruined for you because your fans are like, oh, I can't wait for this moment, which is the who the F is Jason moment.
Right. That was just an inescapable thing. There's a few inescapable Heroes of Olympus things because I think I did a pretty good job of blocking it out. I don't know who the full 7 are. Really, I just knew the names, the purple shirt, Camp Jupiter thing, and then obviously the Who's Jason would be deleted by knowing the names.
I think I was there when you found out about Camp Jupiter, maybe. I think that was Comic-Con, wasn't it?
I'm trying to think. The big thing was I feel like it was one of those things words were said and it just kind of a lot of things will just kind of gloss over my eyes. I try to not look too deep into anything.
Right.
But yeah, I wonder if that's the moment because there were a bunch of people wearing Camp Jupiter shirts. I know I had seen that image of Uncle Rick fighting himself where he's wearing a Camp Half-Blood shirt and a Camp Jupiter shirt in the other one. So I think there was just enough stuff. There's only so many things that I can do to avoid just seeing that. So what are you gonna do?
I'm just remembering this because it was you, me, and my cousin. We were talking just about whatever it was we were talking about. I remember a couple of fans were walking past talking about a Camp Jupiter, and you had this look on your face what? And I'm
yeah,
oh,
maybe. I feel it's going to happen, and thankfully it's nothing enormous. I do feel bad that I didn't give that warning before on the podcast because there's a couple of people who somehow have still kept reading along with the show and they're like, what is this thing Mike keeps talking about? And I'm like, oh, oopsie poops. At this point I know that so many patrons specifically from talking about in the Discord have just blown past wherever I am that I felt oh, everybody now has skipped ahead of me, right? But no, I need to realize that there are some people reading along.
Some people like the concept of the read along podcast.
Power to them. I mean, but especially with this series, it wasn't too hard for me to stop reading the PJO books and, having to stop before every recording and then only read after. It's tough with these. It's so tough.
Yeah, they're pretty good. And I'm accepting your mentality that you've had so far with Lost Hero because I am in the notion The Lost Hero, not particularly one of the strongest books in this series, but you're I'm having a great time. And if this is the quote unquote worst of the series, then it's only up from here. I'm yeah, you know what? You're right.
Yeah, you are the reason. I had been saying this on the podcast a little bit. You are the reason that I thought everyone's least favorite was The Lost Hero. I don't know which one is everyone's least favorite, but I did get some pushback when I had said that on the podcast. So maybe you are a bit against the grain and not liking this one as much, but I will just have to see. I don't know if there is a consensus worst one or whatever, but I just want to be as unknown as I can be. I don't even want to know like which of the 5 is everyone's favorite. I'm assuming it'll be one of the last 2 just because that kind of seems to be the trend, but
we'll have to
I
see.
don't know. We'll just have to see. I'm enjoying it. So yeah, so same thing, Heroes of Olympus, you just kept going, reading them as soon as they came out.
Just kept going. I did at some point stop randomly at like, I don't know, the 3rd or the 4th book in the series. And then I just never picked up the 5th book until, I don't know, maybe like 2018, 2017.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that makes sense, around our age of like some sort of school will get in the way, depending on how old or young you are. Either it's like college hits, high school hits, something hits where you have so much required reading that, optional reading has to take a back seat.
There was definitely a point when I was like, I don't know, 16, 17, 18. I'm like, I'm getting too old for these Percy Jackson books. They're so silly. I don't need to read them anymore. Fast forward 10 years later. Hey, look at that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Look at me go. I'm certainly not too old for them. Let's get into chapter 23, though, which is called Leo. So it's chapter 23. We will rename it by the end of this discussion. But where we last left our heroes, they had crash landed into this Monocle Motors workshop. And this chapter opens with an absolute banger. I'm glad opening line bangers are back in full force. Quote, Leo wished the dragon hadn't landed on the toilets. Because yes, we knew Leo was going after Festus, is where we last left Leo specifically. And I love that we are getting the new version of Supreme Lord of the Bathroom. Also, speaking of Supreme Lord of the Bathroom, I do want to correct a goof that I had earlier, because I was wondering in the chapters when they go to the Zeus cabin and Jason is there and they say there's no bathroom. I was asking, what bathroom does he use? Are there communal bathrooms? And everyone was asking, are you an idiot? You've made your brand liking Supreme Lord of the Bathroom. You forgot that there's a common bathroom. In my brain, and maybe I just need a detailed map. Maybe I look at the one in the Demigod files or something. In my brain, that bathroom was just like far away from the cabins. I don't know why. I figured that was like the cafeteria bathroom. And in my brain, that's like too far of a walk to be, I've gotten up in the middle of the night and I need to pee bathroom.
I feel like I've definitely, any time I think about the concept of like a summer camp, it's communal bathrooms. I can't think of like any summer camps with bathrooms in the cabins. I mean, maybe, here's the thing, I've never really been to summer camp.
Yeah, I never did a sleepaway camp. I used to do tennis camp, and that would just be, it was at a community college in New Jersey. So it would just be like, go, and then my mom picked me up when she was off work kind of thing.
Right.
And then I've done a couple of things in college that were overnight retreats at places that normally do summer camps. And those were communal bathrooms, but in the thing. So it would be like one big room with like 20 bunks or whatever, and then like a multiple shower thing. So I've never at least had a detached communal bathroom situation, which is what I envisioned in the book and then also was shown in the TV show. So yeah, I guess I just didn't think of it because I thought surely that's too far away. But then now the more I think of it, aren't the cabins kind of like around the dining area anyway? So maybe it's not too far. I don't know. Whatever it is, we should get a bathroom in the Zeus cabin. Is it too much to ask?
It's also because it's no longer a U. It's like they're making like a grid pattern with all the cabins they're building.
Well, yeah, they've added new ones. Did they just, it would be funny if they just added them to the side. So just turn the U into an omega. They're like, hey, it still works.
Just like when you get to like the last cabin they're like, this is the last Greek god that we care about. It's like, well, great. Now I have to walk 2 miles to the bathroom.
Yeah, gosh. We need to make sure that the city planning works out so that it's not too hard and we get equal bathroom distance for all the campers. But let's get into chapter 23. And we've got this opening line. It's fantastic. But it's not toilets. Leo said toilets, but it's not just toilets. It is a line of porta potties, which is different. I wouldn't qualify those as toilets. I feel like that has to be a separate thing. Like in my brain, a toilet has to flush.
Yeah.
Like that feels like a qualifying toilet factor to me. It's just infinitely worse, especially when we're dealing with a crash landing, because that means the contents might be sprayed out. And Leo does confirm that they are. But thankfully, because Festus had a bit of a fireball when he landed, it torched most of the contents. But there is still that, I'm assuming blue. It doesn't say blue, but it has to be blue. That blue chemical goop that's in porta potties, that is all around the ground. Festus appears to be fine. It seems like the fireball was from the methane gas, I assume, given off from the poop.
It's giving off like how Percy's ingenious idea in Sea of Monsters was like, oh, the boys' locker room is full of a bunch of noxious gases. I'm sure if a fireball's thrown there, it'll explode.
Oh my gosh, I completely forgot about that. That's the dodgeball fight, yeah?
Yeah, that's the dodgeball fight.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. I completely forgot about that. Fantastic. So Leo is frustrated because when he goes to look at Festus, it seems like there are no defects in there. So he doesn't know what's wrong. He thinks that maybe there's foul play involved because he thinks, I didn't mess anything up. Something weird is afoot here, but he sees the issue. The control panel is frozen over. And that's especially suspicious because Festus was running so hot. He kept giving off heat that it would have taken something really weird for that part of him to freeze over. And of course, the control disc, which has been the issue the whole time, just looks terrible. It just looks like it's all out of sorts, and Leo is unsure if he can fix it. But then he does hear a voice in his head, his mom saying, oh, you can fix anything. So he decides to give it a go, and he asks the Toolbelt for the specific supplies he would need to fix it, and the Toolbelt does provide. Love the magical Toolbelt. I'm all here for it.
Love the magical Toolbelt so much. Because I think it's been mentioned before by either Piper or Jason, like, oh, Leo is wearing a Toolbelt. This is the first time we're getting, like, descriptions of what the Toolbelt does.
We got a brief mention of it last chapter when he took out the duct tape and the breath mints to help with Piper's leg to make the makeshift sort of splint. But this chapter is more of, hello, you've met our good friend, the Toolbelt. Let me tell you how it works. Again, to make more and more Baldur's Gate 3 references, which is happening in these past couple of chapters, just because this feels so D&D. It feels like when you hit tool tips for the previous chapter where it's like, here's a brief description of the thing. And then this chapter feels like when you hit inspect and it gives you the big, long description of everything. You're like, here is the specifics of how the tool belt works. So Leo smiles and then as narrator notes to us, the reader, that he knows that the tool belt has limits. It wouldn't give him anything magic like Jason's sword or anything huge like a chainsaw. And then it adds that he tried both, which is great. I'm so happy that he did that. Like, yeah, that's exactly what I would do. If I had some sort of magical item, first thing you got to do is test the limits. Obviously, you got to know what you're working with.
Just sit down for a couple hours, be like, okay, give me a machete, give me a 10 millimeter wrench socket, because apparently every mechanic loses that ever. Give me, I don't know, what's another tool? Give me a hammer.
I like that he kind of tested everything. I would be like, all right, give me something that has to plug in, give me something that's battery operated, give me something that is really big. Like, yeah, you got to try all the different things. Leo also clarifies that you can't ask for too many things at once. There's a bit of a cooldown timer, and the more complicated the request, the longer the cooldown timer is. And small and simple things can always be pulled from it. So anything that you would normally sort of find in a workshop is easy to retrieve. And for me specifically, as someone that has an engineering background, and anytime I play a video game or a board game or anything, I want to know all the specifics of everything. Like, I love a deep dive. I love to know exactly the parameters I'm working with. This makes me so happy. And I know I bring up Harry Potter a lot, but that's kind of my trajectory here. I really didn't enjoy how kind of yada yada the magic and certain magical items were there. And I get that that was more of a plot focused thing where it was just, you kind of have to just go, yeah, this thing works because it makes the story better or whatever. But I think Rick kind of threads the needle both ways here. He gives us the restrictions of this is how it works. It doesn't feel like it drags. And it still has some of those yada yada moments of, oh yeah, there's a cooldown timer. But like, yeah, Leo can't just like take out stuff constantly. It wouldn't be fun. We need a bit of a struggle. So I think Rick does such a fantastic job here.
Absolutely. I think the main thing for Harry Potter, the main reason that's like a problem is because, especially for Harry, his POV we're following. So he'll be like, what's an invisibility cloak? And everyone's like, Harry, how do you not know what an invisibility cloak is? It's like one of the most easy things to know about in the wizarding world. And then someone will give him like a brief 2-second synopsis, just be like, okay, idiot, let me explain it to you. But here, like when Percy doesn't know something and he has to ask Annabeth, Annabeth does give him a little bit of like a playful attitude, being like, oh, Percy, how could you not know this? Sure, I'll tell you, no problem.
Right. And I think what's also fun, this is an additional thing that makes the narration style of this series fun, because you can play around with the timeline a little bit and stuff can happen sort of off page or previously. We have Leo knowing something without someone having to exposition dump it to him. And basically he's catching us up to speed of, oh, when you were reading about Piper and stuff, I figured this out. When they were having their cute little canoodling session at the end of the last chapter, I was figuring out how the tool belt works. Let me catch you up to speed. And that's really fun. And it makes things feel more natural that we aren't just following one person who has to be told everything or has to find stuff out in the actual tense of the story. We can get these moments of, oh yeah, I learned this on my own. And let me just give you the Spark Notes version of it. And it's great.
Absolutely.
So Leo starts cleaning the control disk and melting the snow that falls on Festus with his fire powers while he does so. He is kicking himself for not realizing that the Ice family wouldn't like him. And he also says that he didn't enjoy being left out. Even if he knew he wouldn't vibe with these people, he just didn't like being an outcast of sorts. And he reveals another factor in his hesitation towards not telling people about his fire powers. The prophecy. There's a particular line in the prophecy that says, "To storm or fire, the world must fall." I'm also thinking I'm going to start doing this for the future books. I might even do it for the rest of this one. I need to just print out the prophecy for whatever book it is and just put it in front of my face when I'm recording behind my laptop screen, because I feel like if I was constantly looking at it and thinking about it a little bit more, I would have picked up like, oh, right, Oranos doesn't make sense. Gaia makes way more sense and stuff like that. But I just go so quickly with like read, take notes, record, go, edit, everything else that comes along with making this podcast and stuff, that I don't just like ruminate on the prophecy as much. And I want to. So I think I'm going to start doing that.
That would be good. I obviously can't say anything. I want to keep this trapdoor intact.
Yes. So Leo thinks since he is the first fire guy since 1666, surely he's got to be the person this prophecy is talking about. And he thinks that the camp will expel him and cast him away if he tells them, so he doesn't want to. And then if there wasn't enough bad stuff going in his head, we get this quote, "Then there was Keone. Dang, that girl was fine." And Leo also confirmed, a teenager. All three of the narrators, excessively teenage. I love it. It's so good.
Yeah, excessively teenage. We have, I wonder if he'll like me from Piper. We have, I wonder if she likes me from Jason. And we have, I want to kiss any female in the area from Leo. We have like perpetual horny teenage boy 24/7 from this guy.
Yeah, we're getting the full spectrum of horny teenager. We have relationship horny and both versions of it.
Yeah.
Where, the, oh my gosh, does he like me? And then the, I'm pretty sure she likes me, but is this right side of things? And then Leo is just, will anyone kiss me, please? Please, please, please. I would love it.
Anyone.
And I've been through all ends of that in my teenage years.
Cheers to that. Absolutely.
So Leo reveals that all his cleaning up was to impress her when she returned. He noted that he used a 1-hour valet service when he was cleaning his clothes and fixing his hair and stuff. 1-hour valet is wild. I don't know how you can clean clothes in an hour. My wash cycle on my washing machine is like 48 minutes for the shortest setting that isn't a quick wash. I don't know how you're getting everything done in an hour.
Magic.
Yeah, I guess that, yep. Mm-hmm. Asked and answered. Now, this feeling of being left out isn't new to Leo. It's happened with his family, it's happened with foster homes, and it happened back at the wilderness school when Jason and Piper coupled up. And Leo admits, and I think it's nice of him and big of him to do this, that he was secretly excited about Jason's life being a lie because it allowed him for a bit of a reset. But now he is worried because he has seen how they acted just a couple of minutes ago in the warehouse. And he can tell, oh no, they're getting back together. Here we go again.
He's like Timon when Nala and Simba are falling in love.
Yes. Very good reference. Very good reference. Then Leo says out loud to himself, enough Valdez. And I do this as well. I had said previously that I say, come on me, which he also says, but specifically when I'm playing sports, most notably tennis, because that's one where you can make unforced errors. If I hit a ball out or I make a silly decision that blows up in my face, I will let out a, come on, Schubert, out loud to myself. So I feel a kinship with certain elements of Leo for sure. He continues, nobody's going to play any violins for you just because you're not important. Fix the stupid dragon. And I feel bad for Leo, and I was hoping that a good thing could happen to him. And thankfully, chapter 24 exists.
Oh, yeah. Chapter 24 is a great thing for Leo, but unfortunately, he kind of gets a pep talk from maybe not the person he wants a pep talk from.
Yeah, you can tell it's bad because it doesn't say, and this is the traditional thing for these Rick Riordan books, is when you hear a voice and you don't see who it is at first, it says, a voice says. But this one said that Leo heard the voice, which immediately means, okay, it's Gaia. And the voice says, you're wrong, Leo. Leo stands to see who said that, but he sees no one. But then he catches glimpse of a giant face forming on the ground made out of the snow, asphalt, and porta potty juice. It doesn't speak necessarily, but Leo can hear a voice in his head via vibrations in the ground. This is so cool, by the way. I don't know if Gaia is always going to talk like this or if it's just while she's asleep. But this is a very cool dynamic. Again, to make a Harry Potter reference, I'm very sorry. It reminds me of the Voldemort in the ears thing in book 7, which is just extra chilling when someone is talking to you and you don't see their mouth moving. And this has happened a couple of different times in the Percy Jackson universe, so it tracks. But that's just extra creepy. It's just really adding on the fear factor here, especially because you can see the face and it says it's like 10 feet big. Like, it's a huge face that's like kind of talking, but not really. I don't know. It's unnerving for sure.
Oh, it's absolutely unnerving, and it gives really to like the whole supernatural, the whole mythology, magic side of this world that we're experiencing. It's like, yeah, there's this powerful earth woman face in the floor. She's not going to open her mouth to speak to me. She's going to use her strong powers to like telepathically speak in my brain, which is, I think, a word. She's not speaking to him. She's like implanting her voice in his brain, which I think is like a different vibe.
It's a completely different vibe. Oh man, I love it. It's so creepy. I really enjoy it. She tells Leo that he's the most important of the 7 because without him, their powers are meaningless. And I think this is fun, and I will just have to see when I finally finish I guess at least the Heroes of Olympus books, and I could have a spoiler-free discussion about the 7. As a big sports fan, it reminds me of when people will argue, who's the greatest of all time? Is it LeBron? Is it Michael Jordan? All these sorts of things where people just have these conversations all the time. And it's objectively very silly because it doesn't matter, but people get so heated about it. I would assume that Percy Jackson fans don't really do that because nerds tend to be nicer and it's not as big of a deal. But I wonder if there are heated discussions about who is the most important of the 7. And I just wonder if that's a discussion that is had or goes on, or if it's something that I could do either in an episode or a live show or something. Like, I wonder if these sorts of chats do happen, if people get really passionate about it, making things like, well, Leo's the most important because without him, their powers are meaningless. Like, does that come up?
Yeah, I really can't add to that conversation because that's spoilers.
Okay.
They haven't even met the whole 7 yet. And
That's
you haven't
true.
seen how the 7 interact with each other, if they interact with each other. So you're gonna have to wait till Heroes. I'm keeping this trapdoor nice and tight.
Thank you. And just to continue to kind of wonder out loud, it would be a thing, and I appreciate you not spoiling anything, because it could be a thing where maybe there are 3 that are the consensus top 3, and then it's an argument. Maybe it's not all 7 could be argued are the most important, but maybe there's a discussion between like 1 or 2. Does it have to be Percy? Is there someone else? Is Percy even one of the 7, or is the 7 separate? There's a lot. I'm intrigued, but it just made me think of my fun sports world. But Gaia continues, quote, "They will never reach me, never stop me, and I will fully wake." And it seems interesting that she seems to be giving Leo advice about how to achieve his goal. So I'm wondering, is this a trap? Is this her being overconfident? Whatever it is, I don't like it. I don't like the vibes of it. It's unnerving when the bad guy is kind of gassing you up for things that you think you might want to hear. Never want to hear that. Not great.
No.
Leo is furious and simply replies, you killed my mom. And the face then gives a bit of a sleepy smile, like it's having a good dream. And then Gaia tells Leo, I'm just going to say, Gaia, if I'm wrong, so be it. But I feel like, given this next line, I'm not. Gaia tells Leo that she is his mother too. The first mother, capital F, capital M. Feels incredibly Gaia coded, making me super think it's her. She tells him not to oppose her and says that he should let her son Porphyrion rise and become king in return, and she will ease Leo's burden if he does so. And this gave me a bit of a realization with the prophecy I was talking about, trying to think about it a little bit more. I think that the son that she's trying to have rise is Porphyrion. I think... Look, I had wondered in a previous chapter if I had known the name of the giant, because I feel like I knew some of the Titans and stuff, but this name is not ringing a bell to me. If I did learn about it at some point, I have forgotten it completely. So I don't know this guy's deal. I don't know this guy's power. I don't know how scared of him I should be, but we at least have a funky name drop from Gaia. And I'm sure if someone is super into Greek mythology and they read this, they get really excited because they know who this is. Was that the case for you? Like, were you also big into Greek mythology? Without telling me what this guy's deal was, did you see this name and then go, oh my gosh, I know what's in store?
I was huge into Greek mythology. So yeah, there were a lot of names that I did recognize. I didn't really have the experience of like, oh my God, this guy's coming out, or like they're trying to summon this guy or revive this guy or summon this guy or whatever the terminology would be. I just read the name. I'm pretty sure when I was 12, 13, 14, whenever I read this book for the first time and I read that name, I'm like, how do you pronounce this name?
Yeah, it's a tricky one.
And then my second thought was like, oh, cool. They're trying to let this guy rise.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of the big bads, maybe. Who knows?
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking about this point.
Yeah, I'm intrigued with all of this, where things will stack up of what are the corollaries from PJO to this? And are they the same or are they different? You know, is Gaia the Cronus of this series? Is this guy the Luke, where he's going to be around the whole time as the second in command? Or is he like the general, where he's the bad guy for one book and then gets thwarted by the end? So it's very up in the air for me, and I am intrigued to see what happens. Leo then chucks a porta potty seat at the face because it's the first thing he sees, and that's how you can tell he's pissed. It causes the face to dissolve. And Leo, just the silent face pop. Leo then hears loud noises and cries across the warehouse, so he knows that Jason and Piper are in trouble. Leo thinks to the voice saying, walk away now. And he does what's now becoming a Leo trademark, where he late replies to something that someone said earlier at the very end of a chapter. And he says, not likely. Then he asks the Toolbelt for the biggest hammer it has, and it presents him with a 3-pound club hammer with a double-faced head the size of a baked potato, which is a very Texan way to describe things, which tracks because Leo is from Texas and Uncle Rick as well. Baked potato just reeks of Texas cuisine to me. And then he runs into battle, and that's the end of chapter 23. I have titled this one, I Meet the Supreme Lady of the Bathroom. Do you have an alternate title for chapter 23?
Good. Oh, that's really good. I was just going for a reference. I was going to say How to Fix Your Dragon.
Oh, good. I enjoy that. That's fun. Yeah.
That's fun. Man, when I gave you, by the way, hey everyone, hi, in case you didn't know, I'm the one who gave Mike this prompt over an email when you did your live show for the first 2 chapters. Mm-hmm. And I was like, he's going to have fun with this. And I was right. You are having fun with this.
It is fun. It is a challenge, but it's a nice, fun challenge. And I like that we have in the PJO era of the New Olympian, I was trying to guess what happens next at the beginning of chapters. And now in this one, I'm trying to summarize a fun, quirky way at the end of chapters. It's a fun little thing, but as I keep saying in these episodes, it's not easy. I have so much respect for Rick Riordan doing so many fun chapter titles across however many chapters across the first 5 books, because man, it is not easy. And I can now see why there's a lot of authors who just call it chapter 2, chapter 3, because it's a lot easier.
Absolutely.
So we're going to take our break here for the Lost Euro, our mid-roll break. We're talking about fun stuff with the podcast, new merch, which is in production. I don't know if these things are here yet, but the new merch, at least at the time of recording that we're working on, is Et2 no Ethan pins, the episode 100 joke that me and Sequoia made.
Oh, that's good.
And
that's
then
good.
We've got a new poster that we're trying to do before the live show. So lots of fun stuff. Listen for that, as well as upcoming live shows. And then we'll be back to talk about chapter 24. Hello and welcome to The Lost Euro. We're here in the Shubio, and this time the baby is not asleep yet, so I can talk in a more normal volume. Hello, how's it going, everybody? We've got some updates with the show. Let's get into them. First up, I had mentioned in the past, and you may have seen on social media, that for patrons, you can see the video versions of the live shows that we did in Seattle and Vancouver, which will be the next 2 episodes of TNO. So if you want to hear my thoughts ASAP, you can go over to thenewsolympian.com/Patreon. If you join any of the TNO tiers, $5 a month and above, you will be able to see that video. I will be uploading it at some point today on Monday, hopefully earlier, maybe later, because I have a busy day as a podcaster and a dad and someone in the softball playoffs in New York City Central Park Softball League. But I'll be trying to get those videos up. So if you cannot wait to hear my thoughts and you want to hear and see them and see the performances as well, you can go over to the Patreon and see those videos and consume that content early. Now, leading into this mid-roll break, I did talk about some upcoming merch, and that merch is in my hands, but it is not available on the merch store quite yet. I have the pins. We've got the posters. Both are absolutely gorgeous and beautiful and magical, but I've got to do a little bit of work to get them actually on the merch store. But if you come to some of our upcoming live shows, we will be selling them there. So we've got 3 shows in August. We've got one on August 3rd in Berkeley, California, and then one on August 24th in Nashville, Tennessee, and then one on August 25th in Atlanta, Georgia. You can get tickets at thenewsolympian.com/live, and the merch will be at those shows. And then I will eventually have them up on the merch store, hopefully sometime soon. And then this coming Friday is when the tickets go live for a bunch of the other shows that are coming up in the near future. I'm very excited about them. I hinted them recently, but just a refresher in case you didn't hear in the mid-roll break of last week's episode, we've got shows in New York City, Vienna, Virginia, which is very close to Washington, D.C., Toronto, Ontario, Boston, Massachusetts, New Orleans, Louisiana, Dallas, Texas, and Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Tickets for all of those will go live, or at least most of them. This Friday is at least when some of them go live. But make sure you just follow The News Olympian on Twitter and Instagram, because that's where I can post updates about all that kind of stuff and let you know what's up. But yes, I'm very excited for the fall run of shows, and you can get tickets to those eventually at thenewsolympian.com/live. Now, I mentioned the Patreon previously. I want to give a shout out to the folks who have joined the Patreon most recently. So shout out to our newest God tier patrons, Itimaleng Chiloane and Not Today John. And shout out to our newest demigod tier patrons, Kira Reed, Crystallisden, and Sophia. And I'd also like to do some corrections. There's a group of people that I missed. I should have said them in episode 133, but these were all God tier patrons, and I just somehow missed them. So shout out to these God tier patrons who have been around for a while: Draco Mint, Ranger Payne, Kieran, Marie 662000, so Marie 662,000 or Marie 66,000, Marie in a lot of numbers, and Jackson. And also shout out to Catherine Sloan, who upgraded to the producer level tier, but I didn't get a notification about it, so I haven't been saying their name in the ending credits like I do with all of the producers. If you are in this case, let me know. And I like to give shout outs for upgrades as well, but I don't get notifications about it. So you can always just shoot me a message on Patreon, and then I'll be like, oh yeah, and then I will give you a shout out in a future episode. So yeah, if you want to upgrade, do that, and then shoot me a message, and then I'll say, hey, thanks for upgrading. But thank you all so much for your support. May, I guess, Demeter, because of crops and stuff, bless you that if you eat something that should give you food poisoning, you just don't get it. I had food poisoning this week, and you know what sucks? Food poisoning. So I hope none of you ever get it ever. It's not fun. I don't recommend it. But what I do recommend is listening to some of the other podcasts that I make. Hi, I'm Mike Schubert. I make a lot of other podcasts, and I think you would enjoy them. One of the ones that I think you would enjoy is Horse. It is a comedic basketball podcast, but we don't talk about the sport. We just talk about everything else. The drama, the Twitter beefs, the cool uniforms, the fun things that the players are doing off the court. That's what we focus on. We talk about the NBA and the WNBA. Right now is a fun time because the WNBA is raging on. The Olympics are coming up soon. There's a lot of fun things going on right now. So if you check out our website, horsehoops.com, or you search for Horse wherever you get your podcasts, you can listen to me and my co-host Adam Mamawala, a professional stand-up comedian, talk about basketball on a bi-weekly basis. Now, unless you are listening on Patreon, where you get access to ad-free episodes, we're going to take a break here for some sponsors. These sponsors make it feasible for me to be a full-time podcaster. Some of the ads will be read by me, such as by some of our newer sponsors like Thrive, who does online grocery store stuff. But some of the other ads may not be read by me, and those are inserted locally. So if you live in Mozambique, don't be surprised if you hear an ad in Portuguese, because apparently that's the official language. But once those ads are complete, we'll get back into this episode of The Newest Olympian. And we are back, and we are here for chapter 24, which is also called Leo, and we will get into it right now. So, Leo's emotions are swirling from his recent conversation, and it doesn't help that he is about to enter a warehouse now after thinking about his mother's death. I didn't realize this. I'm glad he brought it up. Yeah, of all the places to be, and of all the places to run into Gaia right before a scary thing that's happening, it just really is setting him up to be in the worst possible headspace ever.
Yeah. I could tell a story, but it is kind of a little sad.
Your call.
I mean, yeah, it's so in early 2022, unfortunately, my father passed, and I got the news that he passed in a Home Depot. So every time I walk into a Home Depot now, I'm like, oh, this is activating something in me.
Well, on the bright side, now you look, Home Depot gave to the Trump campaign. You should shop at Lowe's anyway. So there you go.
Gotta shop at Lowe's. It's fantastic to actually, Lowe's is closer to where I live than Home Depot. So hey, look at that.
Bang. Yeah, but look, I can totally get it. And it's a shame. Thankfully, Home Depot, it's not necessarily, you don't spring me as a big Home Depot guy.
No.
But it would be tough if it's something that comes up often. I can't even imagine. And thankfully for Leo, I hope warehouses aren't a constant fixture in his future. But I guess, I mean, he's like a big crafty boy. He likes to work with cars and stuff. So that would be really tough. Because for him, I'm sure it's not even just the warehouse, but like, I don't know, anytime you're using the tool belt, like I feel like there's a lot of different things that would remind him of his mother. And hopefully he would think of the positive things and not that one fateful day.
Absolutely.
Leo tries to snap himself out of it, knowing that this is exactly what Gaia wants, but it's hard to do so. It's hard to shake it off. He doesn't see Piper and Jason, but he smells that something is wrong. Leo can tell that there's a non-human in the mix, and I was very intrigued that a demigod could do this. I don't know if this is just a Leo thing. I don't know if this is a Hephaestus thing. I don't know what's going on, but previously it was just Grover who was smelling things, right? Did we ever have Annabeth or Percy smelling the monsters?
No, it was mainly Grover and Tyson who would smell monsters and whatever. I think heightened senses might be a thing, because I remember maybe there were a couple of lines and jokes in Percy Jackson where Percy would be like, oh, I could smell him from here. He smells terrible.
Okay.
I don't think that line is put in to be like, oh, Percy and all the other demigods have like super enhanced sense of smell. It's just supposed to be like a joke or a description in general. And in this case, it's more of a description than a joke.
Yeah, gotcha. Now, somewhere on the factory floor, Piper's voice cries out, Leo, help! Leo's confused as to how Piper could have gotten off the catwalk with her busted ankle. And I also think he should be suspicious of Piper's voice via the narrator and not Piper. When you add that extra line, you're thinking, obviously we have the knowledge that someone is mimicking voices, but, suspicious. Leo then makes his way closer. He's crouching and he's hiding behind machinery all along the way. Piper's voice calls out for Leo again. Leo hides and he looks at what he thinks is massive car pieces dangling about, and then shapes that look like forklifts. But then the forklift size shapes move, and one moves and proves to be a humanoid that says, told you it was nothing, in a deep, inhuman voice. And then another shape of similar size calls out in Piper's voice, Leo, help me, help, but then hard switches into a manly growl, saying that there must be nobody there because no demigod could be that quiet. So one, there's multiple, and that is worrisome because as we left the previous chapter, it seemed like there might just be one. But two, I think this is an intentional thing. Rick keeps using the word nobody when the Cyclopes talk. I feel like it's intentional, and I have to ask him if I ever get him on the podcast, but multiple times they said nobody instead of no one there or anything else, and it feels like a little Odysseus nod to me.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Polyphemus definitely would spread the rumor of nobody around, and that might just be something that sticks in sort of the Cyclopes, the back of the mind.
And if anyone is playing Hades 2, you will know that this sort of nobody joke has some play in the game, and it's very fun and very well used. The first shape that moved laughs that either Demigod 3 ran away or was a lie from Piper, so they really don't think Leo is actually here hiding. He says that they should get back to cooking, which is a classic Cyclops move. Classic.
So does this mean that Piper... We'll find out that like Piper was captured, obviously.
Yes.
I wonder if it was like, oh, you don't want to mess with me. My friend Leo is somewhere around here. Or if it's like Piper cried out for Leo in panic and they're like, oh, there's someone else here named Leo.
Yeah, I would guess that she called out for Leo because they know Leo's name. So unless she said, you don't want to mess with us, there's a third demigod here. His name is Leo Valdez. He's good with tools. Like, just gives his bio.
His name is Leo Valdez. Here's where he lived. Here's his social security number.
Here's his favorite tacos. Yeah, he just going down the LinkedIn.
His mother's maiden name.
Social security number, birth certificate. Yeah. And this is the point where Leo realizes what he thought was dangling car parts from before are actually bodies, and it's Piper and Jason. Piper is wriggling around. Jason is limp and he has a large bruise on his head, not what you want to see. The Giants have set up a makeshift fire pit with a rotisserie spit and everything, and Leo is kicking himself for not realizing that this would happen with monocle motors. But I defend him not realizing it right off the bat, and it's not just because I didn't realize it right off the bat, but one, they weren't tricked here or lured here. They fell here. So unless Enchiladas, however you say his name is, unless he steered them here intentionally, aside from zapping Festus, I just feel like it's bad luck, or maybe it's just one of those, you're drawn to the monsters. I don't know. It feels like that shouldn't be something that was in their control at all, so don't kick yourself for that. And then two, people don't have to be Cyclopes to wear monocles. Often you'll see people with two eyes wearing monocles. Not in real life, usually in Cinderella, the animated film. But, you know, A monocle doesn't mean you only have one eye. It just means you only have one glass.
Monocle means you're a terrible person. Anyway, this is, I think, also a parallel to the first proper monster Percy, Annabeth, and Grover met, who was also a monster who didn't lure them in, but they were lured in a moment of they needed safety and like they just had a bad experience. And they also are like, oh, Auntie M's Emporium, Monocle Motors. Oh, I'll think nothing of it. They're just names. And then the monsters are revealed are like, oh, Auntie M, of course, Medusa, Monocle Motors, of course, Cyclopes, duh.
Yeah, it's like when you're at trivia night and you don't know the answer at all, and then they say it, and you're like, oh, I was thinking that. No, you weren't. No, you weren't. You didn't know the answer. If you were thinking it, you would have wrote it down.
Yeah.
So there are 3 Cyclopes in total, and Leo describes the 2 standing and tending to the flames. They are 10 feet tall. One is wearing a chainmail loincloth, and the other is wearing a toga made out of fiberglass insulation. Both of those sound exceedingly uncomfortable. Those sound terrible. The third is crouched and not facing Leo, making me think that, and I wrote making me think he will be scarier. And this is the scariest thing that Leo has come across yet, and he is shaking in his boots because of it. He wishes that Festus was functional. He's unsure of how useful his little 3-pound hammer will be. And he's motivated to stay and help rather than walk away, because that, again, is what Guy was getting at. Save himself by leaving. And I love that we have a spite-motivated hero. Gotta love someone motivated by spite to do good. Come on. Great. Now, the chaincloth Cyclops asks the larger leader if he can ungag Piper, and the leader allows. Leo grabs a remote control that he took from Bunker 9, and I'm excited because we had heard when Leo was leaving Bunker 9 that he took a bunch of stuff, and it didn't say what it is, so I'm excited to learn all of the different things. We've got the Toolbelt. Now we have some control of sorts. We'll see what happens there, but I love just the slow reveals of all the things that Leo stole from this very cool place. I hope it happens often. Leo then gets a screwdriver from the belt and starts working, and he does so carefully because he knows that he can't risk making a noise, giving away his location, ruining things.
Automatically, just with that line, for some reason, I'm thinking about Quiet Place.
Oh, yes. Gosh, I have not seen that movie because I am a baby when it comes to horror films. I can handle a horror film if it doesn't have jump scares in it, but A Quiet Place feels like jump scares the movie. If the whole concept is don't make noise and then something will attack you if you do, that feels very jump scare heavy, and I think I'm going to just sit this one out.
Yeah.
And by this one, I mean 3, because now they're making a prequel.
Oh, yeah, that came out 2 days we're recording. Look at that.
Yeah, look at it go. Wow, yeah, they're not paying us, but pay us, John Krasinski.
Yeah, Jim, pay us.
Yeah, pay us. Chaincloth tries to get Piper to scream because Chaincloth enjoys screams. Piper responds in a calm voice like she's coaching a dog that's acting up and says, oh, Mr. Cyclops, you don't want to kill us. It would be much better if you let us go. So she's trying the charm speak, and it seems to have an effect because he turns to the fiberglass one and addresses them by name, Torque. Of course, we're in a warehouse. That makes sense. Yep, motors, machines, cool. And says to Torque that maybe they should let her go, adding that she's pretty. And I'm wondering, is that a constant with the charm speak? Is it always a physical attraction thing too? Is it not just motivating people to do what you want? Is the hubba hubba factor always there?
I don't think it's a spoiler to say charm speak can work on relatively anyone that Piper like really puts the effort into, or anyone who uses charm speak. It works better if the person is capable of feeling attraction to you. Yeah, that's more or less how it works, which, I mean, I can't wait till you get like several books in the future, and then I can be like, hey, Mike, remember when I said that thing?
Oh, yes. Good. Torque says to the other, I saw her first Sump, which also makes sense for a machine shop-based name. I'll let her go. And then the third giant stops the bickering, and we learn, plot twist, it's a Lady Cyclops. I didn't even know Lady Cyclopes could exist. I definitely wondered that in an episode at one point, and I think it was just a zipped lip thing.
I swear they made a joke about that in Sea of Monsters, or I think maybe I'm thinking of a completely different book. Oh no, you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking about how when the little girl in the Big Friendly Giant was like, "Are there women giants?" and the Big Friendly Giant's like, "Preposterous women giants." That's what I'm thinking of.
Second Roll Doll reference. Good books, bad person. Wee. But yeah, I had wondered if that was a thing. I think I wondered it when they said that how Cyclopes were formed, because it's Poseidon with a forest nymph, right?
Some kind of nymph, yes.
Yeah. So I was wondering, Are they all populated from that, or do we also have lady cyclopes so that, cyclopes can reproduce? So interesting, and now fun to know that we've got lady cyclopes in the mix. She is taller and beefier than the other two. She's wearing a chainmail muumuu, and she's got pigtails and copper wires and metal washers woven into the greasy pigtails. She tells them that Piper is Venus-born, letting us know these are more of the Roman style of monster. And she tells the other two Cyclopes that they should beware because she's using charm speak. Piper starts to plead with her, but she growls at Piper and yells at her to cut that out, for she is Ma Gasket, who has eaten much tougher heroes than her. Ma Gasket gets back to arguing with the other Cyclopes. Leo gets back to work. He fiddles some more, and then he hides behind a robotic arm. And I was thinking, ooh, okay, the robotic arm, because he doesn't really reveal to us the plan. But I'm thinking if he is using robotic arms, that could be pretty smart.
I'm just waiting for the reveal to be that Leo built a Gundam.
Just the Megazords run in. Saber-toothed tiger!
Yeah,
Triceratops!
Absolutely. That's exactly, because when I'm hearing him like messing with these things and he's mentioning like arms and like big components, I'm like, he's building a mech. I'm thinking like he's building some kind of like armor he's going to use to fight the Cyclopes. But what he ends up doing is, I think, is a little better.
It's pretty good. He also could have just made a battle bot with the remote and just, zoom, zoom, blah, 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 blah. Yep. Now, the argument between the Cyclopes makes it clear that Ma Gasket is their mother, really putting the Ma in Ma Gasket. She yells at them to get back to meal prep, including Sump retrieving her case of salsa from the other warehouse. Important component. Love a good salsa.
Absolutely.
So I support it. She then hits him, Sump, with the chassis of a truck as scolding, and he's basically fine. So that made it clear to me, yeah, Leo, that hammer's not going to do anything. So you might as well just put that away and focus on your plan. Sump leaves to get the salsa. Leo knows that now is the time to strike because they are separated. So what we learn is that Leo has been wiring up the robotic arms. He's done 2 so far, moves on to a 3rd. He's out of sight of the Cyclopes, but Piper then catches a glimpse of Leo and gasps. Ma Gasket asks what's up. Piper lies, saying that she thinks her ribs are hurt and tries to convince her that if she's got internal injuries, she would taste bad. And Ma Gasket laughs at this notion, saying it wasn't an issue for the last hero they ate, a son of Mercury. So again, we're getting the Roman version of Hermes here. So very, very Roman.
Thank you. It took me a second to remember who Mercury is. I'm like, wait, who's Greek? Wait, what? Took me a second.
Don't worry. I took Latin in high school. I'm up to speed.
I mean, hey, you're up to speed because you remembered Mercury.
There we go. Bing, bang, boom. Ma Gasket says that this son of Mercury tried saying that he was on medication so he would taste bad, but he was fine. And Torque says, yeah, he tasted like mutton. Then adds that he was wearing a purple shirt and speaking in Latin. He was stringy, but tasty. So again, purple shirt, Latin. And that kind of catches the interest of Leo and Piper. They're confused by this, but they can get to it later, I guess. Ma Gasket says that the point is they aren't as stupid as they look. They are different because they are northern Cyclopes. Leo gets back to work and wonders if the purple shirt is similar to Jason's. Leo thinks that they can worry about this later, and I wrote, yeah, in the next chapter. Now's the time for the fight.
When they said Northern Giants, and I think it's Torque maybe who says A, I immediately clocked. I'm like, oh, this is like the Lastragordians, like the Canadians. They're north. They're in Chicago right now. Sorry, Detroit. They're in Detroit right now. Sorry.
Yeah, right. So Leo sees an engine block suspended above the Cyclopes camp, and he wishes that he could use it as a weapon, but the crane holding it is too far away. And I wrote, okay, Chekhov's dangling engine. Surely this will get used. There's no way that it wouldn't. Leo retrieves the remaining parts from his belt to finish his universal remote, and I think universal remotes are a thing. This isn't fully magic. I know there's some things where you can kind of utilize, as long as it has the same receiving. Like I can use my phone to control my TV sometimes if I can't get the remote. Basically, baby is sleeping on me and the remote's too far away, but my phone is in my pocket. So I quick download Sony Bravia TV remote app and then use it to decline the thing that says Samba Interactive TV is now available. This might be a very specific thing, but if anyone has a Sony Bravia, this damn thing telling me that the Samba Interactive TV is available has been on my TV showing up almost every day for 4 years. And I don't care. I think there's a long, complicated way to deactivate it because I looked it up on Reddit once and I need to do it. But my, oh my, how annoying that is. And I have to use my phone to do that so that I can play video games and not wake up my baby. Anyway, Percy Jackson. Leo gets these parts and he prays to Hephaestus to help him, and also prays that his dad isn't a jerk, which is great. Piper starts gassing up the Cyclopes so that they don't notice Leo. She says, "Oh, I've heard great things about Northern Cyclopes. You're so big and smart." And that makes it clear to Leo she's never heard of these people before. She's just giving empty, vague platitudes. This is fantastic. Ma Gasket says flattery won't work either. She says that she will still have Piper for breakfast. Piper says she thought Cyclopes were good and made weapons for the gods. But Ma Gasket says, "Oh yeah, I am very good. Good at eating people and smashing things." So funny. So funny.
I wonder if her favorite Marvel hero is the Hulk.
Yep, love a smash. She continues saying she's also good at building things, but not for the gods. She says that is the job of their cousins, the elder Cyclopes, who think they're so much better than them because they're older. She says that their southern cousins are also silly because they tend to sheep, but Ma Gasket and her crew are Hyperborean Cyclopes, and they're the best. They, quote, founded Monocle Motors in this old factory, the best weapons, armor, chariots, fuel-efficient SUVs, and yet, forced to shut down, laid off most of our tribe. The war was too quick. Titans lost. No good. No more need for Cyclops weapons.
It would have been really funny if instead of like chariots or whatever they were using during the Battle of Manhattan, Cronus's army would just come in with fuel-efficient SUVs.
Look, it would have been good, and it would have been a good way to get around because as you made a point on Twitter once, and I'm absolutely gutted. I think of all the things I didn't notice. I'm not upset about getting predictions wrong. I'm not upset about, not seeing obvious things coming or whatever. You made a good point that I'm furious I didn't come up with. How the hell do they never take the subway in the Battle of Manhattan? They are walking so far. They never take any sort of transit. They don't even get into cars, buses, like anything. I get the traffic is stopped on the road, so maybe, but and maybe the subways aren't working, but like they walk too far. The Battle of Manhattan would take way too long. You made such a good point. I feel like one day I got to go Modern Muckraker style and like fully map it out, but Manhattan's really big.
Really big. I made a small little reel where I'm like, the closest bridge to the Empire State Building is like a 40-minute walk away.
Yeah. It's like if you just pull out the Google Maps, that's going to be tough to cover all of that on foot. It's just not truly feasible.
And then it's like, well, they could run there. Cool. They cut their time in half, but also they have less energy to fight a bunch of monsters the second they get there.
Yeah, right. Gosh, man. So great point that I'm jealous that I never thought of that. It's such a good point. Piper plays a sympathy card, saying that, that's a shame because I'm sure you made such great weapons. So Torque shows off one of them, the Squeaky Warhammer, which is a big hammer with an accordion box on the end, and he demonstrates by slamming it on the ground, and it does make the ground crack, but then it also emits a noise as if it's coming from the world's largest rubber duck. So seems like they are not as good of craftsmen as they would let on. Piper just goes, terrifying, which is so funny. And Torque says it's not as good as the exploding axe, but it can be used more than once, which again, very, very funny. Piper asks if she can see it, and Torque does start to give it to her, but then Ma Gasket gets him to stop. Again, love some humor in the midst of a scary and action-packed chapter. Then she tells Torque to kill Jason before he dies on his own because she wants the meat to be fresh. Leo starts working even faster, noting that he's so close, he just needs a couple more minutes. Piper tries to get their attention. A wire Leo is working on sparks, so the giants all turn and look at him, and Torque just immediately chucks a truck at him, and Leo barely rolls out of the way. So, scary stuff right off the bat. If the initial thing, roll for initiative, cool, I'm going to use throw a truck at you. We have escalated quickly.
You've been struck by truck.
Ma Gasket tells Torque to get him. Leo starts fiddling with the remote as Torque rushes towards him. One robotic arm then springs to life and slams Torque to the ground. It then grabs him by the leg and tosses him upwards, and he smashes into something in the rafters. But instead of him falling back down, yellow dust rains down, meaning that he has disintegrated. So, good to know that as long as the robotic arms hit them, they are one-shot kill monsters. Very helpful.
I think even Leo says, he's like, well, they can take a chassis on the head, but they can't take 10,000 pounds of force from the robot arm.
Yes. And I know chassis comparatively could be quite light, but I mean, if Leo got hit with one, it would be bad news. So I'm glad
Bad news bears.
Bad news bears. The big robotic arm does a good job. Now, Ma Gasket is shocked. Sump shows up, and even narrator Leo says, as if on cue, perfect timing. And of course, Sump does the classic, I got the salsa, and then immediately gets hit with machine arm number 2, sends him and the salsa flying, and he is sent into the arm of machine 3, which slams him into the ground, and he poofs like a sack of flour being dropped. Very cool. I am so excited for whatever adaptation happens of this. I know a lot of people are hoping for an animated series. Me and Joel Rochester are hoping for a K-drama. But whatever it is, I think this would be a very fun thing to watch.
I have never thought of The Lost Hero as a K-drama before, but now that you say it out loud, it makes so much sense.
It's just a K-drama.
Oh my God.
The Thalia photo drop thing is the most K-drama thing that's ever happened. The weird on again, off again love thing. You open the book knowing that two people are supposed to get together, and then you're just wondering how it's going to happen by the end of the book. There's a weird, quirky friend, Festus. It's a K-drama.
Oh, and going back to my original joke about how if Jason and Piper are Simba and Nala and Leo is Timon, would that make Festus Pumbaa?
1,000%, yes. Of course. Now, we get this great quote. Leo was beginning to feel like Commander Toolbelt when Ma Gasket locked her eye on him. She grabbed the nearest crane arm and ripped it off its pedestal with a savage roar. You busted my boys! Only I get to bust my boys! I love Ma Gasket. I'm all in on Ma Gasket. I think she's my favorite Cyclops in the whole series so far. She's so fun.
You are doing a significantly better voice for the Cyclopes than the audiobook narrator does.
Oh, what does the audiobook narrator do?
Mostly like kind of like that, you know, like any more tricks, demigods kind of thing.
Okay.
But you're doing it better.
I feel like for the other two, they said deep voice, so it would have to be like a deep kind of, oh, who's there? Like it has to sound so deep it's inhuman. But yeah Ma Gasket, and I don't know why. I know she feels like she should have a thick accent. I guess she should have like a Midwestern Northern, you know, like from, I guess, Michigan. Like she should have one of those accents that I won't try to imitate because I feel like I will say something and then I'll definitely do Minnesota by accident. So I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm not Midwest educated enough. I've only ever been to the Midwest for podcast live show related things. So my Midwest knowledge is limited. You call it pop, your beer is good, you got a lot of cheese, it gets cold in the winter and the summers are great. The Midwest, there's some lakes, they're great. Leo controls the remaining two arms and swings them at Ma Gasket, who breaks one in half easily, and then the second smacks her in the head, but it is just that, a smack. So she grabs it, rips it, and swings it like a baseball bat, missing Piper and Jason by just an inch. So doesn't feel like this is going to work. Feels very Pokemon, not very effective thing. Yeah. She has resistance to giant robotic arms. It's not going to work. We got to do something else here. Ma Gasket throws it at Leo. Thankfully, she misses. And then we get this quote. Leo started to realize that an angry Cyclops mother was not something you wanted to fight with a universal remote and a screwdriver. The future for Commander Toolbelt was not looking so hot. I love Commander Toolbelt as a nickname. I hope it sticks. It's very funny. He should get a shirt that says Commander Toolbelt on it. Like, I think it's a really fun, tiny nickname. Oh, that could be a good piece of merch. A tool belt with Commander Toolbelt stitched in. Let's go.
Yeah, that actually would be really fun. And then people can pretend to be the original fan or the official art for Leo Valdez.
I haven't really seen the official art. I think I may have seen who's the person that did the second round of it where it's a lot better?
Oh God, I don't remember names like that.
But it's someone that was like really famous in like the Tumblr world, and then Rick had them do the official art. Yeah. I think I've only seen their drawing of Jason, and that's it. So I don't know what people do for Leo. I don't know if it's a similar situation like where there was like the really bad Grover. Is there a really bad Leo? Oh, nods. Okay.
Oh God, yeah. It's not. Listen, all the original artwork that was made for the books being like, this is what the characters look like, not particularly good.
You know, it's all a learning and growing process, and Rick seems to have learned and grown and hired someone who's really good in making good art. Now, Ma Gasket taunts Leo, asking if he has any more tricks up his sleeve, and I just wrote in my notes, come on, the engine block, we gotta get this, right? Come on, this has to come into play. And then literally the next line, Leo looks up and sees the engine block and thinks, if I could just get Ma Gasket to step a little bit forward. And then, with his Hephaestus abilities, he can sense, and he's not even sure how he knows this, feels very much like when Percy just kind of figured out his water powers on the fly. He can just sense that there's a weak link in the chain holding it up. So he thinks, okay, if I can do something to that chain, it might drop. So Leo tries to, again, play a Percy card. He confirms that he has tricks, and he says he will destroy her with fire if she steps forward one step, which feels like a very interesting stipulation, but she falls for it. So you can't argue with the results.
Yeah, it's not a spoiler. Because the thing is, whenever I remember myths, I have to like quickly run it through my brain. I'm like, does this happen in one of the Rick Riordan books? Can I tell Mike this?
I appreciate it.
It's that this is not the only other time I've ever heard, this week actually, of like stepping X amount of steps will result in your death. According to Norse mythology, the ending of Thor in Ragnarok, in the entirety of Ragnarok, is he'll fight character, and then after he finishes, he will take 9 steps and then die. So, hey, you know what? Taking too many steps is bad for you, apparently.
Yeah, look, Kill Bill with the heart thing too. The moral, never walk. Ma Gasket laughs at Leo's taunt here because Cyclopes are immune to fire, so how could you destroy me with fire? She says that she can help him even and throws some fiery coals from the pit at him. They scatter around his feet. He says she missed. She retorts by hurling a barrel of kerosene at him. Piper screams no as a firestorm of 20-foot-tall flames surrounds him. The flames burn off due to the lack of fuel. Piper is stunned. Ma Gasket is as well and asks, "What are you?" And Leo says, "The son of Hephaestus, and I warned you I'd destroy you with fire." And he tries something he's never done before, shooting a bolt of white-hot fire at the weak link in the chains holding the engine. The flames die. Nothing happens. Ma Gasket taunts and says she's excited to eat a firepower demigod since it's been so long. But then the chain has perfect comedic timing because it delayed snaps and Leo goes, "I don't think so." And then the narrator says Ma Gasket didn't even have time to look up when she is crushed to dust. And then Leo says, "Not immune to engines, huh? Booyah." And we are back down to earth. Leo Valdez says something cool, says something that doesn't hit. The balance of Leo Valdez talking trash.
Hey, booyah's cool. Cyborg says that.
Oh, yes. Also written in the mid-2000s, right? I remember Stuart Scott from Sports Center. Yeah, booyah. I mean, it was very cool back then. It was very cool.
Rick is very opposed to this because he's always like, my characters are perpetually ageless, and it's like a really nice fan theory that people are like, oh, if Percy's 12 in Lightning Thief and the book came out in 2005, that means he was born in 1993. Fun little fan theory. Rick shut that down. He's like, Percy is perpetually whatever age I want him to be. It always exists in the now. So what I'm trying to say is, if Leo is 16, this book came out in like 2011, if I recall, born in 1995, he would have absolutely been like, he would have been watching Teen Titans as a kid.
He'd be saying booyah. It tracks. I think Rick does a good job of trying to make things not explicitly dated, but then Jane the assistant was using a PDA. So what are you going to do? Like, there's only a brief window of time in which that happened.
The timeline of the Camp Half-Blood Chronicles, which I think is like the official name of like the 15 books that span from Lightning Thief to the last one in the Trials of Apollo, I think that's what it's called. It's so weird. It's a short, I think giving you the amount of years is a spoiler. It's a short, it's not 15 years or however long it's been since book 1 to book 15, but it's still a short enough timeline that it's weird that, in Lightning Thief, oh, hey, So Yesterday by Hilary Duff is a thing. And in one of the later books, Lil Nas X is like a relevant reference. I'm like, what is this timeline?
Yes, my goodness. Yeah, it will be interesting to see how it all shakes out. That is good to know that it has an official name because, or at least one that the fans call it, because I've been doing a thing where I've been making Instagram reels about statues in New York that would be good in the fights. And I kept calling it the Battle of Book 5. And then multiple people in the comments were like, why aren't you calling it the Battle of Manhattan? I was like, I've never heard this before. Like, I don't think they call it that in the books, do they? Like, or at least maybe as far as I've read, I didn't know if they, I don't know that they like actually ever call it that.
I think people just call it that for some, like, at least the fans call it that for simplicity.
And that's what I got. Like, maybe they'll refer to it at that, or maybe they did in The Lost Hero so far and I missed it or something. But I said this, and then some people are like, oh, well, it's what the fans call it. Be like, do you forget that the podcast, like, how do you forget what this podcast is? Like of course I'm not going to.
It's longer to say the Battle of Book 5. At least at this point, go for the whole bit. The Battle of Percy Jackson and Olympians, The Last Olympian, Book 5. Just go for the whole bit at that point.
Book 5 is fewer syllables than Manhattan.
Is it? Book 5?
Book 5, Manhattan.
God,
I'm more efficient.
But who knows? It's like the Principal Skinner joke from The Simpsons, where he's like, oh God, it's hold on. I need to look this up because I'm going to lose.
Yeah, I won't be able to help you. I've only seen one episode of The Simpsons. It is the NSYNC episode, and I've seen that one so much that I could probably quote the entire thing. We were only allowed to watch that because my sister and her friend were super into NSYNC.
It's a meme where he's like, am I so out of touch? No, the children are out of touch, but the children in this case are Percy Jackson fans, and you're
Look, I will now start calling it the Battle of Manhattan, so that mainly I just don't have to reply to comments anymore. But anyway, back to this version of Percy Jackson. So he says booyah, and then he collapses to his knees. Piper asks if he's okay. Leo staggers to his feet, but he's drained from that fire move. He frees Piper. They free Jason and pour some nectar into his mouth. Leo says he'll be okay because he has a thick skull. Piper is surprised that Leo has fire powers and asks if this was always the case. Leo confirms, adding that he's, quote, a freaking menace, and he should have told them earlier. Piper thinks there is no need to apologize and is hyped that he has these powers and he used them to save their lives. Leo is overjoyed, but then he sees something near Piper's foot that worries him, the dust reforming. And I wrote my notes, that's too fast. And then Piper says that's impossible given what Annabeth has told her. And that's fun because basically what Annabeth has told her is also our perspective as the reader. We're basically like, yeah, that's what she told us. So we're all on the same page here.
You think Annabeth Chase would lie to us?
No, never. Leo thinks that it might be possible, given what they're literally witnessing right now in front of their very eyes. Piper then realizes that Boreas warned about this. So here's the quote to close out the chapter. Boreas said something about this, the earth yielding up horrors. Quote, when monsters no longer stay in Tartarus and souls are no longer confined to Hades. How long do you think we have? And then the narrator continues. Leo thought about the face that had formed in the ground outside. The sleeping woman who was definitely a horror from the earth. I don't know, he said, but we need to get out of here, which is a great action-packed ending. I am very excited to see what happens next. That is the end of the chapter. I have titled it, I Find the Weak Link, which I thought was a good little nod to, you would think like, oh, he's, finding something else. But like, no, it's literally he finds the weak link. Do you have an alternate title for chapter 24?
Oh, it's also a play on words of like Leo being the flirtatious, horny teenage boy. I would have titled it, Leo shoots his shot.
Oh, that's good. That's good. That's a fun one because it's given multiple levels. That's great. Well, speaking of great, this was great. Robert, thank you so much for joining. I very much appreciate you guesting. And of course, I always appreciate all the memes that you make about TNO. It is always a delight. I get a good chuckle every time you post one, so thank you. And I also appreciate your dedication to keeping me a spoiler-free boy, both on the podcast, across social media. I do have you respectfully muted, so don't worry.
That's fine, yeah.
But I know if I ever get a notification that you've tagged me in something, that it's safe to click the thing, whether it's on Twitter to say unmute or, I know you wouldn't tag me in something or you would have the respect to keep me out of the conversation so that I don't actually see something. And I do really appreciate that.
I love committing to a bit.
Yeah, it's a good bit.
It's a good bit. You don't know. You're gonna find out in the future.
Right. And to everyone, don't tell me anything. I don't want to know anything. Even when people, I know it's probably fun, but don't give me any comment about anything. When I put something and you're like, oh, this will be funny to revisit in 5 years, don't say anything. I don't want to know anything. I don't want to know something's important. I like freaking out about Juniper and then not knowing that she means nothing. I don't want the reverse. Say nothing about the future to me. Nothing.
Nothing.
Even as subtle as you think it is. I don't want to know. I'll bleep myself. That's how you know I'm serious. I had to curse. Don't tell me anything. It's my job.
Don't tell him anything. By the way, about committing to the bit, I had this idea for a joke weeks ago or whatever when I was like, oh, we're getting close to when I'm going to go on. I want to pull a prank on Mike. Hey, Mike. So when Cornelius Fudge says Wallaby to Percy, that's not him giving him a nickname. It's
you mean
him.
what is it? No, Weatherby. When he calls him Weatherby.
When he's calling him Weatherby, that's not a nickname. That's because he forgot his name. I also have been listening. I just finished listening to Potterless.
Oh, okay. So did you make this joke because I put the thing in the audio to tell people to stop telling me?
Well, yes, I did.
That's how many emails I got correcting me. I had to put something into an years old podcast episode to say, stop emailing me about this. I'm thankful that I've gotten way less actually stuff from Percy Jackson fans than Harry Potter fans.
Which surprises me. Percy Jackson fans are such actually people.
I guess people are giving me more of the benefit of the doubt of that I'll get stuff. The thing that sometimes happens, and I'm very thankful, like I'm way ahead of where the podcast is, because there are certain times in like this book, I think more than any of them, where I've wondered something. I'm like, why didn't Leo tell his friends that he has fire powers? And like, sure, I could have maybe guessed it in the moment, but then like 2 chapters later, he very explicitly says, I didn't tell them because blah, 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 blah. And everyone is commenting on the episode thing where they're like, oh, Mike's a freaking idiot. He didn't think about this. No, you also knew this because they tell you 3 pages later and just like, maybe just wait. Like, maybe just wait. So I'm super thankful that I'm ahead of it because again, I think an unintentional thing, people are like, oh, Mike, you were wondering about this. Well, here's the answer. If they tell me 2 chapters later, just like put it on ice, guys.
I'm very big about annoying my partner with that because we'll be watching a movie. I'm showing him the Marvel movies for the first time and he'll ask a question and I'm like, what if we wait 10 minutes for them to explain it to you?
I do the same thing with Kelly, especially if it's a thing that I've seen and she hasn't.
Yeah.
She'll go, why did they do that? And I go, they'll probably tell you by the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Or I'll sometimes, if I'm feeling really sassy, I will pause it and then the little like progress bar will come up and be like, oh, they got 48 minutes to tell us. Like if I'm feeling extra juicy. But anyway. That's the end of this episode. Thank you so much for joining, Robert. If people want to find you doing stuff, where can they find you doing stuff?
You can find me on the internet at TheDamMemePage, Dam spelled D-A-M. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Originally I was going to launch a thing in June. Turns out launching things takes money, time, and effort, so that's coming out later. Once it's more solid, I'll be like coming out this day specifically. But for right now, the only other thing I mainly do on the internet, I make a Steven Universe rewatch podcast. It's called The Bits. You can listen to that wherever you listen to podcasts. It is very spoiler heavy. I think we say this in the first episode. We spoil the big twist of Steven Universe in the first episode, so take caution.
You will learn that the universe was actually the friends that we made along the way. Well, Robert, thank you so much for joining. Listeners, thank you so much for listening. And until we see what goes on with our group running away from reforming monsters, until then, I'll see you later. Hello, thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Newest Olympian. This podcast is created, hosted, and produced by me, Mike Schubert. I also run the social media and the website. Our editor is Sherry Guo. The music is by Bettina Campamontes and Brandon Google, and the art is by Jessica E. Boyd. If you can't get enough of the podcast, you can get involved in a couple of different ways. First, you can support us on Patreon, where you get bonus content. You can go to thenewestolympian.com/Patreon. You can also find us on social media. We're at Newest Olympian on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can go to our website, thenewestolympian.com, to learn more about the show. You can check out live shows that we've got coming near you at thenewestolympian.com/live. You can check out our merch page at thenewestolympian.com/merch. That's also where the TNO coffee lives. And for community stuff, we have a subreddit where you can chat with folks, reddit.com/r/thenewestolympian. And we also have the Discord, which is accessible to all folks on Patreon. Speaking of the Patreon, I want to give a shout out to our folks producing at the highest tier, our producer level patrons. Shout out to Kelsey Gillespie, the Damn Steam Nuggets, Vicky Garcia, Veronica Bartova, Frida Vikstrom, Megan Moon, Craig McRoberts, Taylor Payne, Sabrina Balsiger, Boney Pony, Polly Burridge, Nikki Harris, Tatiana Schmidt, Sandra Rose, Josh Sayer, Josh Wilkie, Abby Ryan, Ashton Gabrielson, Marco Redhouse, Sam Reeby, Riley Kiddas, Mrs. O'Leary, Milo Kim, Sandkopf, Julia Kendall, Rike, John Drillsma, Rayla Matthews, Sky Mallory, Persasabeth, Aiden Parziani, King Bastion, One Damn Distraction coming up, Ginger Spursboy, A Cup of Solace, Meg Roy, Bradamus Prime, Skylar Sisters, Scott Sheldon, Sophie, Natanya Page, Ann M. Thayer Cohen, Finley McLeod, Sarah Elise Arnson, Bella, Hayden Neal, Percy Jackson, Han Haley Hingelheimer Schmidt, and Catherine Sloan. If you want to help out the show in a non-monetary way, word of mouth helps the show so much. Whether you post about the show on social media or you reach out to someone directly, someone who you know is a big Percy Jackson fan, or someone you've been trying to convince to get into the Percy Jackson books, saying, hey, there's this podcast, it's called The Newest Olympian, it's really good, you should check it out. Also, you could leave the show a rating and review on whatever podcasting app you're using. Whatever you do to spread the word of the show really does help. I'm appreciative to anyone who has done it in the past, and I'm appreciative to anyone who will do it in the future. But I'm just so thankful that you tuned into this episode, and I hope you tune into our next episode, where we will be joined live in Seattle, Washington by Nathan Cox to break down chapters 25 and 26 of The Lost Hero. But until then, I'll see you later. Hey everyone, how's it going? It's me, ASMR Mike. So last time I turned on my Game Boy to do the classic noise, but there's some other Game Boy Color stuff here with me in the studio currently, and we'll do that for the ASMR Mix segment. So first, I've got my copy of Pokemon Blue here in one of those protective cases, so I'm going to open that near the microphone. Wow, this is really protective. I don't know how to open it. Oh my gosh, it's been so long. What do I do? What do I push? Do I click this? No, huh? Do I push this in? Do I flip this? What do I do? Oh, there. Oh, you just, there it is. Wow. Okay. I hope you enjoyed me struggling to open a plastic thing for this ASMR Mix segment. Thank you so much for listening.